What is going on, y'all?
What is going on, y'all? What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave.
Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I told myself coming on, I'm taking all the hards.
You what?
Just give me the hard part.
Oh, 30.
God, I forgot about the wager. I would have played the game completely different.
It's not the Ravens.
Who is it? Who is it?
It is actually the Eagles.
Oh, Jalen Hurts!
Yeah, Shirley had 105. Yep.
I'll wager 30 points.
It's going to be hard for you to blow this. Respective draft classes, who was selected higher, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre?
Rodgers.
What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave. Every Tuesday night, we take to the airwaves, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. For some reason, Facebook was actually giving me a hard time this week. But nevertheless, we are live 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the NFL. Week 6 was insane, and I'm very excited to break it down with a very special guest this week. I'm going to bring him on. Waste no time whatsoever. Patrick, thank you for taking the time to hop on the show tonight. It's really going to be a good one. And like I said, thank you for taking the time. And I'm sure if you're watching this show right now, you're very familiar with who Pat is. He runs his own show that he's been doing since 2018, which, I mean, that's some consistency that I certainly admire. And, you know, I'm going to let you do your own kind of introduction, of course, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows who you are before we kick it off.
You don't got to introduce me, man. You don't got to introduce me, Caveman. What's going on? It's good to be on here. It's good to talk some football. It's a good time. It's that time of year where football starts to really get exciting. And obviously, from a Buffalo Bills perspective, it is a very, very good time to be a Buffalo Bills fan, man. Glad to be on with you, bud. Yeah,
it's going to be a good one, man. If you guys somehow, some way are not familiar with Pat, well, he's been doing the Talking Buffalo podcast, like I mentioned, since 2018. His podcast is a part of the Blue Wire Network. And, you know, he has had a lot of big names on his show, and I figured this was a very big highlight of his, and I wanted to be sure to showcase it. He did interview Adam Schefter. Everybody knows who Adam Schefter is. I think, what was it, 2018? It was like your 20-something 20th show.
Yeah, it was 23rd episode, and he did a good interview, too, man. It wasn't even just like one of those quick radio hits, man. I was fortunate. I was able to get him on for a good 55 minutes. It was a really good conversation about his life and his career. But, you know, it's the local people that I still like talking to the most on the Buffalo side, the media. Those are the guys and the girls that I've formed relationships with, which led to getting people like Adam Schefter and Josina Anderson and a couple others on as well. But, yeah, man, obviously I'm not going to say it wasn't a big thrill, because obviously it was, man.
Yeah, of course. You get to your own horn a little bit. I mean, that is one hell of a get. And for your 23rd episode that you mentioned, I mean, you said, you know, prior to the show, you're almost 500 episodes in now. And, you know, to get him so early on too, I mean, that is one hell of a work. So, you know, good job. That's fantastic. And, you know, I want to say congratulations on 500 episodes coming up, because that's one hell of a milestone.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's fun. You know, it's a grind sometimes, and it's not always glamorous, and the monetary reward isn't always the best, but it's a lot of fun. And I've had my favorite part about doing a podcast 2 times a week, sometimes 3 times a week, is that through the years, like I said, you build relationships with people that you have on the show regularly, and you learn a lot about their stories. And I just like talking to people, man. So to me, it's just grabbing a couple microphones, maybe a camera if you're doing video, you know, hitting record and just having a conversation. I've always been a fan of that.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm right there with you, and that's why I do next to damn near the same thing. So that's what I love. I love to do is talk sports, and we're gonna get right into things and get a move on here. So right after the guest spotlight, is this the right background? No, it's not the right background. We'll go back to the traditional. Anyway, we're gonna get into some recent news that's been going around the NFL as of late, and there's been a couple pieces of news that sprouted, you know, not too long ago. If I can find. First piece of news that I want to touch on is Cam Akers over in Los Angeles is suddenly on the outskirts. I mean, this kind of came out of nowhere. And knowing the Buffalo Bills could be potentially on the market, we really aren't sure if Brandon Beane's interested in what he's looking toward. Could Cam Akers be something on your radar as far as being a Buffalo Bills fan goes over the next coming weeks?
I would be. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not speaking with any inside knowledge. I'm just making educated guesses here. So I want to make that very clear off the bat. I would be surprised. I think this is why you go and you draft James Cook in the second round. And look, it's easy, especially when you're a contender. Contenders are buyers and bad teams are sellers in any sport, not just football, when it comes to trades and trade deadlines. But the Bills are built a certain way right now, and with contracts coming up now, Cam Akers is on a rookie deal, so I mean that's completely different than say a Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. The contract would be, much easier to handle. I just feel like you draft James Cook in the second round to be that type of player, and I mean that's not happening right now, obviously, but we're seeing little increments. I mean, Zach Moss was inactive against the Chiefs on Sunday, so James Cook was a second back. Now he really didn't have many touches, but still, it's the point that he was the second back. I'm not saying. I do think, like many others, that if the Bills do make a move at running back, or if they make a move, it could be at running back before the trade deadline. I don't know what's different about Cam Akers that's significantly different than the style of Devin Singletary or James Cook at this point. You know what I'm saying? Now, Christian McCaffrey, obviously, that's the guy that's going to get thrown out there the most. Saquon Barkley, you could stop saying that name. The Giants they're 5-1. They're not trading Saquon Barkley. The media and the fans would crucify them. But Christian McCaffrey is an elite all-around player and a pass catcher. Cam Akers kind of reminds me maybe a little bit faster version, but he's like a Singletary and like a Cook. I just don't see the fit to bring him in right now.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I was a little shocked. I mean, going to the year, he's coming off the Achilles injury after, he missed a lot of time last season. He played in the playoffs, got a lot of touches then. And we go into this season looking to be the lead back. And I remember all throughout the offseason, I was against, at least as far as fantasy goes, no, don't draft Cam Akers. I'm not drafting Cam Akers. I want nothing to do with him. And the very first drive here trots out Darrell Henderson, and I'm sitting there laughing. Like, what are they doing? And eventually he started to get worked in a little bit more. There was a little bit of controversy between Sean McVay coming out and saying, Cam Akers has got to earn his touches, and he wasn't doing well in pass protection, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're here. It looked like things were getting better, and now all of a sudden the guy's completely on the outs, and it looks like he's out the door. So I don't think this is something I'd be interested in if I was Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott. It doesn't sound like you are. So not really much left to talk about. Cam Akers just on the outs, and it doesn't really seem like anybody knows why.
It's weird, though, isn't it? It is odd how quickly this seemingly came about. I mean, this guy was. It was looking like he was going to be a star before the injury, and now all of a sudden he might not, like if he doesn't get traded, he's going to be inactive on game days and stuff like that. It's a pretty quick fall from grace. And look, I mean, we don't know for sure that the Bills won't be interested. Cam Akers is a talented guy. He's a second round draft pick. I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. I would just be, like you said, I mean, it's a little bit odd, shocking, surprising. But, like you mentioned as well, Devin Singletary's running style is, eerily similar, I would say. And I think he offers just enough. And who knows what kind of compensation they're going to be looking for, because they're going to be desperate for draft picks. I can't imagine they're going to be just dumping him for, a sixth or a seventh. Who knows? Maybe he gets cut. Who knows what's going to happen?
Sure,
this is an odd situation in itself.
I agree.
Although I want to touch on a couple people that are I'm very grateful to have in the comment section. Kim, happy victory week. Very happy to see you. And as usual, Pokemon, thank you for popping in. He does have a question, which I'm going to touch on once we get to the Q&A. What else do we need? We can get to that in a little bit. But the second piece of recent news that just happened, I think yesterday, maybe the day before, can't remember correctly, but Robbie Anderson is traded to the Arizona Cardinals. It was definitely yesterday. This guy has made his rounds in the news this past weekend for putting on a very good show on the Carolina Panthers sideline. He's been very animated throughout his career, especially over the last season with the Carolina Panthers. He's really voiced his opinion. And he eventually kind of gets his wish, and he's traded to the Arizona Cardinals following the Marquise Brown foot injury. Does this really change anything for the Cardinals? They're kind of a dumpster fire at the moment. Cliff Kingsbury's a questionable head coach. Kyler Murray's not playing exactly up to the money that he was paid. Does Robbie Anderson move the needle to you whatsoever?
First of all, doesn't it feel like Robbie Anderson almost got rewarded for his behavior on Sunday? You're playing on a team that is very likely going to be in the mix for the first pick overall in the draft next year. Yet you have a temporary or whatever happens on the sidelines, and the next day you're getting traded to a team that's better. That said, Arizona's been very disappointing so far this year. And look, Hollywood Brown getting hurt, that sucks. And you mentioned fantasy football. That was one of my guys. So I'm I'm not happy about that. And I got Kyler Murray stock in fantasy football, and he's a frustrating and a maddening guy. How he fits, Well, short term, at least I think he would be a good fit because you got Hopkins coming back now. You got Anderson, and you got Rondell Moore. I really don't know if AJ Green, how much useful he is at this point. Of course, you got Zach Ertz too. A lot of guys out there catching footballs. You know what I mean? There's only one football. Yeah, but with Hollywood Brown being hurt right now, the fit feels right. It's odd. I don't know. I was a little bit surprised about the trade. Especially that it happened so fast. I mean, literally this happened on Sunday, and then Monday he's an Arizona Cardinal. Again, they're only 2-4 right now, but they're in a division where there doesn't seem to be any team that's wrestling any kind of control. I mean, the Rams got issues. San Francisco's got a lot of injuries. I think they're probably the best team in the West right now, but they're getting decimated like they always seem to do, especially on the defensive side with injuries. So I don't know. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury's coaching for his job this year, and I don't know. They got to make some moves. It's just, I don't know. It's just one of those situations where it seems like sometimes teams have a good look on paper and they don't play up to it. And I kind of feel like that's the epitome right now what the Arizona Cardinals are. He should get an opportunity though, especially with Hollywood Brown, which by the way is not season ending. Now they're saying that he could be out 6 weeks, which would bring him back around weeks 13, 14, something like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's just, again, it's surprising to me that a guy gets almost rewarded. Like this is like almost an NBA kind of thing. This happens in the NBA a lot. NBA, the players kind of dictate where they're going. That usually doesn't happen in the NFL, but this was a rare case where that did happen.
Yeah, I mean, rewarded is honestly the perfect way to put it. And I did not think, at least I haven't thought up to this point, that Robbie Anderson is a guy that deserves this kind of say where he gets to go or bitch his way out of a situation. Other NBA players, for the most part, it's typically a guy that he's got a track record of, making an impact on his respective rosters. And, he's a big name to some capacity. I mean, this is Robbie Anderson we're talking about. His best season was with the New York Jets and Sam Darnold 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Right.
And what has he done since? And he's acting like, I mean, I would have, although I don't entirely respect the way he went about it, I would respect it more if it was DJ Moore going about it the way he did. I mean, this guy's an extremely talented wide receiver stuck in a completely shitty situation, and he's being as professional as possible. Meanwhile, his wide receiver buddy, who gets shipped out to a better offense, it's going to be throwing the ball constantly, and he's just sitting there with his, twiddling his thumbs. And, I'd be upset if I were DJ Moore personally. But yeah, I mean, rewarded is a very good way to put it for somebody that I didn't think had the merit, I guess, for lack of a better term.
In fairness to him, he hasn't exactly played with great quarterbacks, and Kyler Murray, again, who's been inconsistent, but he's far and away the best quarterback now that Robbie Anderson will have played with after Baker Mayfield. And to your point, Sam Darnold, I don't know, maybe a fresh start will be good for him, but I don't know. Like I said, if I'm the Carolina Panthers, I almost feel like I rewarded bad behavior. So
yeah, I agree. And I mean, they're probably just trying to get the cancer out of the locker room.
Yeah, good point.
Somebody that's just trying to stir up some trouble. That's trying to get rid of it and rebuild. Pokemon says, I'm going to agree with Shannon Sharp on this. Dude ain't good enough to act like that. Yeah, that's pretty much the point. We were touched on. He's not good enough to be running his mouth the way he was, but he got his wish. The Panthers probably are just happy to get him out of the way, and they got a tad bit of compensation for it.
What I would suggest before you go to the next topic, what I would suggest, because I'm sure you got a lot of football fans, but you also have a lot of Bills fans. And what I always try to do, if you're talking about a league and you primarily are focused on the Buffalo Bills and you don't pay attention too much to the rest of the league, I'll always try to draw some kind of comparison saying, if this guy was a Buffalo Bill, what would your attitude be? And when I think of Robbie Anderson, I would say it would be like if Jamison Crowder had a really shitty attitude. You know what I mean? It was trying to force his way out. How would you feel if you're a Bills fan and it was Jamison Crowder? Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. That's kind of how I try to compare it again for a Bills fan who might not be following around the rest of the league.
No, yeah, that's a very good way to put it, especially, like you mentioned, for those that don't necessarily pay attention to around the NFL stuff. I mean, if anybody, I don't know, to your point, if we wanted to branch off for a second, I don't think anybody's coming here that's going to be acting like that. I think there's a culture check at the door.
Absolutely.
The second, somebody's going to run their mouth a tiny bit, you're gone if you're not named Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, ladder. But and two, I think they're probably whipped into shape. If he somehow, he's good enough to stick around, I think he's probably whipped into shape, and that just speaks to the culture that we have.
Sure.
But all right, moving on to the point. Third recent news: recent cave paintings actually changed it. I got to get into the new verbiage. What is the word? I think it's verbiage.
Just call it a shtick, man.
The shtick, the new shtick. I've renamed it. The recent cave paintings had a recent news. Stick to my shtick. So Point number 3 of the recent cave paintings. There's rumored friction between New England and Mac Jones over surgery. And the only reason I bring this up, tying back to your point of, being Buffalo fans, is because it's just the second I read this headline and I saw it, I'm like, what does this sound like? A player that didn't want to get surgery, well, in Jack's case did, but and a team that, disagrees with the decision. What does that sound like? Is that an oddly different situation? This is the tweet that I saw about it. It was Jack Eichel. I mean, I saw this headline and I'm thinking to myself, wow, could this possibly turn into what?
This guy.
Yeah, that guy right there. I have a stupid ass signed jersey framed. It's beautiful, number 15. Oh, what a shame. It took me so long for me to take it down. Oh man, that's a whole nother story. But I just thought this was ironic seeing this in Boston, where he's from too. Oddly enough, just wow. I mean, who knows? And Bailey Zappi's taking over. I mean, there's a lot that can formulate from this. It could be a completely dead headline, but who knows what's going on there.
Zappy's a good story. I mean, you have to admit that. Bills fan or not, don't matter. That's a good story. And let's not forget, he wasn't even the second quarterback. He was the third quarterback. It took Brian Hoyer getting hurt for Zappy to even get an opportunity. And look, in football, a lot of times they always say, especially when you're following a team that's that's mediocre, the most popular player is always the backup quarterback, Yeah. And he's went out there and he's done some pretty good things, and he's put up some big numbers, and they're winning now. They haven't really played, the killers of the NFL by any means, but the Patriots were left for dead. They looked like the season was over, and now they're 3-3. Miami's 3-3, and so it's a good story, which adds to, I'm sure there's a lot of Patriot fans out there, and I mean, I haven't really talked to many, but they probably want Mac Jones taking his sweet old time getting back, and Bill Belichick is very. Like with Dak Prescott, for an example, Jerry Jones and McCarthy, they're committed to him. He's healthy. He's good to go. He's a starter. You don't kind of hear that same tone and that same urgency with Bill Belichick in the New England organization right now. But can you blame them? I mean, look, Mac Jones did have by rookie standards, had a good year last year for the Patriots, but he hasn't proven that much in this league. He's not a superstar in this league by any means. So, when you got a hot hand, it's kind of like with hockey. You were talking about the Sabres and Icon stuff. Sometimes when you got a hot goalie, you ride the hot pads. And I kind of feel like that's what the Patriots at least want to do right now. I don't have any inner workings or knowing what's going on with the surgery or with Mac Jones, or, I've heard about the rumored friction and stuff like that, but I don't know. It would be a lot less friction going on, I think, if Zappy wasn't playing pretty damn well right now. And, again, if you're the Patriots, if you're following the Patriots, if you're covering the Patriots, would you take Zappy out right now?
I mean, man, I don't think so. I mean, if Mac Jones really isn't ready and you're winning games, what's the incentive? I mean, like you said, ride the hot hand. If he's getting the job done,
he better be 101% if you're going to take a guy out when he's got the hot hand. Again, just like Dallas with Cooper Rush. Mm-hmm. Now Cooper Rush had a pretty bad game in Philly on Sunday night, and well, let's get back to Dak. I kind of feel like that's what it's going to be like in New England. I don't think Zappy's going to be a good long-term story, but it's a lot of fun right now. And I'm sure that's causing some of rumors and friction to fly around in New England with Mac Jones.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's nice to see the New England franchise be up in flames just a tiny bit every once in a while. It's not often that we catch them in such a scenario, but nevertheless, we'll move on to the next segment, which, like I said, because I've kind of changed things around, this show specifically, so I'm still kind of getting over the thing. So we're going to start with this next segment. I call it Over the Fire. This is going to be to go with the cave shtick. Just hypothetically imagine you're going to eat tonight and you're going to the fire pit. What's on the fire? And I'm going to give you whether it's a player or a team. You're going to tell me whether it's cooked, they're screwed, they're done, season's over, they suck, the latter, or they're raw or uncooked. I haven't thought about the word for the other side of it yet. But let's call it uncooked. Cooked or uncooked?
Cooked or uncooked. All right, fair enough.
So we'll start with a player individually. Very hot topic around the NFL right now. Russell Wilson. Oh, I put raw here. Cooked or raw? Russell Wilson. What are you thinking?
You can put raw. You can put uncooked. You can put whatever you want to put. I'm not going to say it because he's cooked, man. It's I was talking about this with a good friend today, and it's early, okay? And things happen, and you could be, it's very easy to be quick to react to things, although it has been 6 weeks now into the NFL season. But on the surface right now at this point, this is looking like this could be an all-timer in terms of bad trades. The money that they gave or that they're giving him, which prevents them from doing a lot of other things in years to come with the cap, and the draft capital that they gave up, the personnel capital that they gave up to get this guy. I don't know. And you would think with Nate Hackett that would have been a good fit. I mean, that was my first thought. I was like, this is going to be a good fit. It's not. And that Monday night game, and look, we're hearing about him having a hamstring injury and playing through it. I don't really know if I buy that, but I mean, 4 punts between two teams in 5 minutes of overtime on Monday night. And it was just run on first down, run on second down, and then it's third and short, and you're in the shotgun, almost get sacked, and you throw the ball away. Now, the Denver offensive line, in fairness to Russell Wilson, has been absolutely brutal in protecting him. But I don't know. I'm not seeing sharp decision making. I'm not seeing a lot of velocity on the football. I think his attitude, which maybe in years past, it is a good attitude. It's a very positive, upbeat attitude. But when you give up what you gave up to get him and you're paying him what you pay, I don't know if I'm a Denver fan, I want to see a little fire in that belly when you're losing and you're not playing well. And I don't know. I think it hasn't taken too long to turn off some Denver fans. I think he's cooked, but you're going to have to keep cooking because what else are you going to do right now? At least for the next, maybe 2 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's locked in. He's locked into this franchise. Like he's the long-term plan. I mean, 34 years old for a quarterback nowadays is not old. They're locking him in to be their franchise guy, hypothetically, right?
I don't think he's in a slump. I think he's cooked, and I think there's a difference, man. Some guys have slumps and they play their way out of it. I don't see it with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so weird. The different quarterback that he's kind of turned into ever since that stupid thumb injury or finger injury. I don't remember what it was, but it's just changed not only his physical abilities, it seems, but the way he plays mentally. He's nowhere. I mean, he used to be a quarterback that would make a play last for 8 seconds on average. I mean, he would run behind the line of scrimmage. He'd be, twirling around, avoiding the rush. I mean, he had just always had fantastic awareness in the pocket. Now all of a sudden he acts like he's playing, trying not to get a rental suit dirty. I don't know what he's doing back behind that line of scrimmage. He sees a guy coming. He's gets barely any urgency to get away. He had one play last night where he got away, rolled to the right and hit Jerry Jeudy down the sideline. I mean, that is the Russell Wilson we're so used to seeing. That's what Denver paid for. And it's just not, there's just not a lick of it there. And
that plays like that have been an anomaly though for him this season. And it's weird. Most people who are football fans to some extent play some form of fantasy football. Can you name me a guy in the Denver Broncos that you're excited about if you have on your fantasy team? They might be good at players on their own. Like Jerry Judy's a good player. Cortland Sutton's a hell of a player. Melvin Gordon, pretty good player. None of these guys, that offense is just brutal. And I think he's cooked, and it's probably not a topic, but as a bonus, I think Nate Hackett is cooked too, or over his head, whatever you want to call it. I think that very well could be a one and done situation with Denver. I think sometimes you got to cut your losses, and I think they're going to figure that out pretty soon with him.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying that much for a guy. I mean, that's the other point. It's like, it just can't all be Russell. There has to be something going on here. Somebody had to convince him that he's this ultimate pocket passer that could pick apart the defense all up and down the field. Somebody must have flicked the switch in his mind to make him think that, because this is just a completely different guy. I'm assuming Nate Hackett has something to do with it. They've handled things very awkwardly throughout the first 6 weeks of football. I mean, Melvin Gordon was eating Javonte Williams' snap share alive while he was playing, and now suddenly Latavius Murray gets signed, and Melvin Gordon's the mud on the side of the road. It just doesn't make sense. And on that note, I needed 8 points last night in my damn game with Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon, and one of the random Broncos tight ends because Dalton Schultz was out. I figured it didn't matter which one it was, but of course I didn't pick the right one, and I lose by 5 or 4 points.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. It's really weird to see that offense that bad. They were better with Drew Lock at quarterback, which was not good, but man.
Yeah, at least Drew Lock provided some spark or some excitement. I mean, even they could be 0-6 right now, and Drew Lock would be making them a little bit more exciting to watch. It's just dreadful football from start to finish. Oh, man, yeah. Cooked. I think I have to agree. I would not have agreed prior to the year. I was big on the Russell Wilson, just needed to bounce back narrative.
I drafted him. He's my fantasy football backup quarterback. So to your point, I did not see that either, but that's what he is. He's cooked.
Well, I would wholeheartedly agree. So we'll move on to the next cooked or uncooked victim. Well, this is a team, but the Packers. You think they're cooked? They uncooked? What do you think about the Packers?
I don't think they're cooked yet. I think they're struggling. There's no question about that. I think they're a very middle of the pack team right now. I think if they were maybe in the AFC and there was a Buffalo Bills and a Kansas City Chiefs team in their conference, I would say they're cooked, because then that would mean they got no chance of getting out of the conference. But look, Aaron Rodgers is what, 4-time MVP and a back-to-back reigning MVP. To some extent, his days of being an MVP are over, but he's also, he's not Andy Dalton either. He's still a good quarterback. Losing Devontae Adams, I think, hurt them far more than they could have imagined. He's not playing well. I mean, I've watched the Packers start to finish the last 2 games, and they're not playing well. I'm surprised their defense isn't playing better. I mean, the New York Jets just out physically them. They were beating them in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. That was very surprising to see. But I'm not ready to call them cooked yet. They could be a team that, look, they're not going to go out. They're not going to win 38-10 for a month in a row, but they can ugly up some games and still win because they got enough guys who know how to win. And I know Minnesota is record-wise is the class of the NFC North right now. They got a 2-game lead on them to beat them, but I'm not ready. And now Green Bay's 3-3. They'll probably be 4-4 after their first 8 games going into a bye. But now I'm not ready to call them cooked. I think that the steak might be in a couple minutes too long, though. You know what I mean? They're on the verge of being cooked, but I'm not ready to call them cooked. There's too much football left, and there's too much history with that team. And again, a multi-time MVP quarterback. I'm not there yet with them.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. It's a very, like you said, kind of the steak is getting close to well done, but I'm not quite there. I just, there's got to be more. Obviously, the Devontae Adams thing was huge. It's a huge loss for them, but at the end of the day, that's seeming like a surface level problem at the moment. I mean, the defense, like you touched on, I was projecting them to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. They, were a top 3rd defense last year. They didn't have Zadarius Smith. Jair Alexander was out. They dealt with injuries all over the place. And they were still a very solid unit on a week-to-week basis. And I was assuming they were going to take that step, getting Jair back especially. And, it's just been disappointment. And I think that's been the biggest shock to me about the Packers up to this point. Aaron Rodgers hasn't looked great. The offense hasn't looked fantastic, but that was kind of expected with the loss of Devontae. But I was thinking the defense was going to pick up that slack, and it's just been nowhere at all. And I'm starting to think, knowing all 3 units of this football team, even the special teams has not looked good. There's got to be a microscope put on Matt LaFleur. I'm not saying the seat's getting hot, but there's got to be fingers pointed somewhere. And when something's going down the way it is over in Green Bay, I think Matt LaFleur's got a little bit of explaining to do to turn the ship around, because, I mean, they had a block punt against the Jets. That was pretty much the game sealer last week. They also had a field goal block. The defense is getting shredded by Daniel Jones and his practice squad receivers, although Brandon Dable's doing that to everybody anyway. And then the Jets go and put, however many points, 27 up on them. It's just, there's a lot of explaining to do, and I think this falls on Matt LaFleur, and he's really going to have to make some changes if they want this football team to be successful.
I agree. The microscope should be on him right now, and I don't know if he's ultimately in control of who's calling these plays or if it's Aaron Rodgers. But what I do know is you don't have him listed, but if you're going to have Aaron Jones cooked or uncooked, he'd be uncooked to me. He's still a very good running back yet. I think he had like 8 carries against the Jets at home. So I don't get that. Him and Dylan should be running the football more. Aaron Rodgers alluded to simplifying the offense, and maybe there is. You don't have a Devontae Adams. They don't have those guys getting deep. Not with any consistency anyway. Run the ball, short to intermediate passing, play better defense somehow. I just find a way to play better defense. But yeah, man, Matt LaFleur deserves a lot of criticism. But yeah, still not ready to call them cooked yet.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. And to that point, Aaron Jones, another one of my fantasy players. It's just not been a great year. But you'd like to think that he's their best playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. And you try to get the ball in his hands as many times as you can, almost to the extent that the Chargers got the ball to Austin Eckler last night. The dude had like 16 targets. I mean, this is what you should be doing when you're lacking offensive weapons and your number 1 wide receiver is either Allen Lazard or, in the Chargers case, Mike Williams, who was pretty much blanketed by Pat Surtain all night. You got to get the ball down the field somehow, and it seems like they're neglecting the best players. So we'll see what happens as they travel the next 2 weeks. They come to Buffalo, and then I'm not sure who they play this coming week, but they got a lot on their plate, and that division's slowly slipping away from their grasp.
They're at Washington. That's a good bounce back game.
Yeah,
That's
what I thought about the
mean,
Jets game too.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. A lot of people were saying that. Except Rich Eisen, by the way. Watch, I don't know. I'm going to throw some props to him because he was the lone wolf. Everyone obviously picked the Packers, and Rich Eisen, to his credit, did pick the Jets. But anyway, yeah.
Wow, good for him. That's never a pick that I could have made in my life, but good for him, I guess. Rich, I guess you know something that we don't. All right, moving on. The final cooked or uncooked portion of the meal. Cooked or uncooked, Matt Ryan.
Oh. God, I wish you would have asked me this 7 days ago.
I know.
Look, I this is going to sound ridiculous because he very well may end up being the AFC Offensive Player of the Week. So to say somebody is cooked when literally the week that they're winning AFC Offensive Player of the Week, which I'm not sure. He's certainly worthy with 389 yards and 3 touchdowns. That said, I've watched, again, a lot of Indianapolis Colts football. And before this game, if you ask me, you take 32 quarterbacks, who's the worst quarterback in the NFL? First, I would probably still say Baker Mayfield, but outside of that, or Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan is right there, man. I mean, this guy is a statue. He makes bad decisions. It just seems like he's lost something on the fastball. I really, really want to say that he's cooked. I remember before the season started on Talking Buffalo podcast, we were doing like bold predictions. And I feel like an idiot right now for saying this, but one of my bold predictions was the Indianapolis Colts were going to finish no worse than the number 2 seed in the AFC. I bought into them. I'm like, they got an elite running back in Taylor. They got good receivers, an offensive line that previously had been great, and they got some good, solid players on defense. I'm like, this is a good team. Matt Ryan's going to be better than Carson Wentz. This is going to be a team that's going to be in a weak division. They're going to be a team that's very good. However, he has been god-awful with the exception of this past week's game against Jacksonville. So I can't say he's cooked, but I really, really, really want to. But I can't. When you throw for 389 yards in a game and you're probably going to get accolades for it, I can't bring myself to say he's cooked, but I really want to.
Yeah, I thought this would be a very, very good one to use just because Matt Ryan has also been at the center of a lot of people's attention. In my mind, although I've always given Matt Ryan the benefit of the doubt, I put Matt Ryan in my quarterback rankings above guys. Like I put him above Kirk Cousins. I put him above Ryan Tannehill. Guys in the middle tier. People call me crazy. I think Matt Ryan is still a very good quarterback, in terms of, the way he looks at the game through his mind. But when it comes to the physicality part of it, he obviously needs a lot of help. He needs the supporting cast to really carry him through. But you look at the offensive line for the Colts, it's not been good. He obviously knows he can't move. So anytime there's any type of pressure near him, he's going to crumble into a tiny tinfoil ball in the middle of the field. I mean, he falls faster than Tom Brady does when it comes to pressure nowadays. I mean, he's hitting the deck quick. And I think it has a lot to do with just almost like this, for lack of a better term, PTSD in the pocket. I mean, he's just so afraid of taking a sack in a terrible spot. He knows they have a hard enough time moving the ball as is. He knows that he needs to get the ball out. If he senses pressure at all, he's going to get rid of it. And it might not be to the right player or it might be intentional grounding. I think he's just kind of freaking himself out at the moment. If he can kind of settle down and understand that his receivers have his back because he really doesn't have much yard after catch, ability on his offense at the moment. He and Hines was pretty much that only threat. I think he just needs some help and he'll be able to take the next steps. But after this past week, I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars were no slouches, at least in the first 3 weeks. And, he goes up and puts nearly 400 yards on him. This guy's a polarizing topic in the NFL at the moment.
He came into the game with more interceptions than touchdowns. He had 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions coming into the game. And again, a lot of these were really ugly interceptions too. But to that point, Jacksonville played very well early in the season. Now you look at that division, Indy's they're 3-2-1 now, and they're a half game behind Tennessee, who had a bye. I'm not sold on Tennessee at all. I think Jacksonville's got a bunch of nice players, but they're not ready quite yet. And you could just tell over the last couple of weeks, now all of a sudden they're 2-4 and they're starting to look very traditional Jacksonville-like, So the opportunity for Matt Ryan to still put up a good season and lead a team to a division title is still very, very much in place. So that's why I cannot. I'd be prematurely cooking him right now. So I can't do it.
I'm right there with you. I'm probably more a lot more toward the uncooked side than you are for Matt Ryan, but I'm glad to hear that there's some agreement on the table. Pokemon says he's been cooked since the Super Bowl. Ain't been right since, much like Cam after his poor Super Bowl play. I don't know. I just think it has a lot to do with, I think Matt Ryan's a little spooked at the development. He goes from the Atlanta Falcons, where he had no pass protection. His best pass catcher, and Calvin Ridley gets caught in a scandal. He's out for the next 12, 14 weeks. Kyle Pitts is really his only help. And now he goes to a team that he's thinking is going to be a lot better, more protection, easy job, just turning around, handing the ball off to Jonathan
And they still
Taylor.
might. It's still early enough. They still might. They're still a work in progress. Indianapolis has had a really good offensive line for the last couple of years. It hasn't been there yet this year. And yeah, I'm not a Matt Ryan fan, so I'm not going to try to pretend that I am. But to your point, Atlanta in recent years has been bad. Now he is part of the reason why they were bad too, not the sole reason. But yeah, man, the system matters at least somewhat for a quarterback. I don't care how good you are, you're going to struggle if they can't block in front of you. So I'll give him a little bit of leeway, but yeah. But again, he can still turn this season around, and he might have started this past week. Like I said, by the time you wake up tomorrow, he might be AFC Offensive Player of the Week. So
yeah. True. Next week is going to be if they're not on a bye. I'm not entirely sure who's on a bye, but next week, if they're able to build off of this could mean
big game for them next week. They're at Tennessee, and like I said, that's for first place in the AFC South. So those are probably going to be the two teams there.
Yeah, that is a huge game. They're definitely going to have to take that one home. It seems like the Jags are out of the picture, but nevertheless, we'll move on to our next segment. This is going to be the weekly climate change. This is basically just the power rankings once the banner wants to change. What the NFL landscape's looking like at the moment. And I was doing like a whole 32 power rankings, but one, that's hard. And two, I feel like that's a little bit overwhelming for my guests to try and dissect. So I did the top 11 because it's closest to the third, although 10 might be, but
sure.
The top 11, this is what I got. It's very objective. I could change it right now if I really wanted to. I'm never able to come up with something solidified. Every time I look at it, I'm thinking there's something I don't like, but this is what I got at the moment. What do you think?
Well, for the record, I was not privy to this before the show, so I'm seeing this in real time, just like everyone else. I obviously completely agree with 1, 2, and I do agree with 3. 4, yeah, I can see Dallas being 4 based on a defense that's been very good. And look, they went on the road on Sunday Night Football against a very good team, a team that you have ranked second, the only undefeated team right now in the NFL. And they struggle in the first half, but they clamp things down in the second half. They've been without their starting quarterback, so they're getting him back. I got no problem with 4. 5 and 6, Vikings and the Giants. I mean, I don't think that they're necessarily the 5th and 6th, especially the Giants, two of the top 6 teams in the NFL in terms of talent and rosters. However, when you go 5 and 1 through your first 6, you deserve respect. And it's not like the Giants have beaten a bunch of tomato cans, the Ravens, Packers. So that's deserved. This is where, starting with 7 is where I don't agree. The Baltimore Ravens, they blow too many games. I feel like they're a team that's underachieving right now. They get out to leads. I think I saw a stat where they've had their last 6 games, they've led by double digits, and they're only 3-3 in those games. So they're finding a way, if it happens once in a while and it's an anomaly, that it just happens to every team, but they consistently are finding ways to lose. It feels like their roster is too good to be 3-3, that they should be playing a lot better. So I don't know if I would have them 7. The Chargers at 8, they're a very good team. They're a talented team. Their problem is just like with the 49ers at 10, their problem is injuries. Yeah. They've been hit hard with significant injuries, but I'll tell you this, I think the Chargers, in terms of talent, I would put the Chargers ahead of Minnesota, New York. Chargers could be a top 5 team in terms of talent, but I think you got them right about where they deserve. And then, look, I did an entire podcast before the season started on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, you're big on the Bengals, aren't you?
I am big on the Bengals because I think that fans have slept on them like they were some kind of fluke last year, and they're not. Look at this roster. Look at this football team. And granted, again, they started out really crappy this year. They're only 3-3. But they got the quarterback who's a winner, a proven winner, got to the Super Bowl. They got one of the 3 best receivers in the NFL. They got one of the 2 or 3 best wide receiving corps in the NFL. They got a pretty good tight end. The defense is serviceable. Henderson makes big plays. I think the secondary's gotten better. They got some good young guys in the draft. The problem with the Bengals, to this point anyway, has been the offensive line, which is remarkable because they've spent so much money in the offseason. They've revamped 3/5 of their offensive line. They bought a new offensive line. I think it's taken some time to gel. So I could see why they're ninth in the power rankings, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that everyone says the Bills and the Chiefs, you're going to see them again in January. You very well might, but that ain't no lock. It ain't like there's a bunch of other teams just vying to try to finish in third place in the conference. I'm telling you right now, the Bengals could beat the Chiefs. So, but again, you're power ranking right now. You're not asking me who the best 11 teams are in the NFL. I think it's fair. And then Frisco at 10 and Tampa at 11. I'm trying to think right now of maybe a team. How about the New York Jets? I mean, they're 4-2. They beat Green Bay on the road. The Tampa Bay, meanwhile, they just lost to Pittsburgh, who was embarrassed the week before in Buffalo. Tampa's got a lot of problems. They got some old players. The offensive line is a mess. Their receivers can't stay healthy. And Tom Brady's still playing well, but, you know, there's issues with him. And at some point, you got to fall off, right, to play. This might be that year where we start to see. So I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the standings and I'm looking at teams right now, and I would maybe try to find a way to get the Jets in over Tampa Bay. You do have Frisco on there. Besides that, yeah, I don't see anything I could really gripe about.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I sit here, I'm like, this is a crapshoot. I try and I determine, it's hard for me to determine how I want to rank it. Like, do I want to rank this team based on how I think they'll look in, a week when they're going to be healthier? Like, hypothetically, I almost had the Dolphins on here because I know Tua is going to be coming back. I know they've dropped the last 2 or 3 games, but they're going to be getting Tua back. Tyreek Hill is, in my opinion, the best receiver in football right now. Their pass rush, I think, is very good. They're a good football team. I think the Dolphins, could have an argument to be on here. I saw a list that had them at like 19th. I get they've lost the last 2 games, but they didn't have their starting quarterback.
Are they a good football team, though? Some teams are good. Some teams have good players, but that don't mean they're good football teams. And I still got to be sold on Miami. Yes, look, Tua, obviously that injury hurt. And this is not me being a Buffalo Bills homer and hating on a rival. I promise you that, because I'm very, as much as I'm a Bills fan, when this microphone is on, I at least attempt to be very objective. I'm not sold on the Miami Dolphins as being a good team. I'm sold on them having a lot of talent, but that doesn't mean that a talented team is always a good team. I still think they got a lot to prove. I really do.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's how I feel about the Vikings. I am the biggest Kirk Cousins hater. I think the Vikings are frauds every season. You hear the same narrative for them. They got this defensive player this offseason, and now look at their offensive skill position group. They're going to be one of the best teams. How could they not be? And I'm sitting here like, yeah, but they're the Vikings. They're going to find some way to screw it up. They're 5-1 right now. I would not be shocked if somehow, some way they end up with 8 wins and they miss the postseason. I mean, there's just something with this team that always goes wrong. Kirk Cousins doesn't play lights out to me. He's got, Justin Jefferson running wide open as he's turning around and play action, giving it to Dalvin Cook every play. There's just nothing that shocks me about this team, to a capacity where I think they're going to be contenders, 5-1 or not. I think they're bigger fakes at 5-1 than the Giants are. I mean, at least the Giants, in my opinion, they got this culture building. Daniel Jones is a fighter. I don't know. Their defense is playing solid. Something about the Vikings, man. I feel like there's just always something that goes wrong. They almost had a comeback blown by the Chicago Bears if it wasn't for Dancer ripping the ball out of E. Smith. I don't remember who that receiver's name was, but he rips the ball out of his hands, and the Bears have their comeback shot in the chest. This past week, I don't even remember who they played. The Dolphins. That was not a too convincing win for playing a 7th-round draft pick at quarterback, right? They should have lost to the Saints 3 weeks ago, too. I thought they should have lost that game. They didn't play great. They're a very unconvincing 5-1 football.
That's fair. I will say, I do think they got a lot of talent on their roster, and I think their defense improved. They got Smith. Harrison Phillips, by the way, is playing very well for Minnesota this year, but it comes down to the quarterback. I agree. I don't trust Kirk Cousins in any kind of meaningful game to make the big plays. He certainly has the weapons at wide receiver and tight end, and they got one of the game's best running backs. And like I said, an improved defense, and they got a new head coach too. So maybe that might be the difference. Yeah, but I don't trust him as a quarterback. And I'm glad you mentioned that about the Giants too, because I do think the Giants are building something that's legitimate. I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to be 13-4 at the end of the season by any means, but I do think they're a team that's going to be in that playoff mix all the way into the end. They got a pretty good defense, and I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be the long term. I'm pretty sure Brian Dable will find some way to whether it's draft or he'll find a way to get a better quarterback and kind of shape the offense even more the way he wants it. But look what he's doing with Saquon Barkley, and that team's just playing well. I mean, they're playing tough. Every game that Baltimore game, that was an impressive victory.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the way that game was stacking up, although the Ravens were kind of blowing the lead in the fourth quarter, they had an opportunity at the end of the game to have a game-winning drive. And all of a sudden, here comes the Giants defense. Here comes the pass rush. Lamar Jackson's flustered. He gets, strip sacked. So they closed that game out. As much as the Ravens blew it, the Giants still closed it out. So, like you mentioned too, there's a culture building here that I feel like you can't really replicate many other places, similar to the Buffalo Bills. I don't think the Vikings have that. And I think that's almost kind of what the problem is in Minnesota and why they can never put the puzzle pieces together. But, enough on them. I feel like the Vikings take up so much headspace with Kirk Cousins in my mind. It's almost unhealthy how much I want them to fail. It's almost sad.
That's how I feel about Tampa Bay, all their teams, not even just the Buccaneers. I feel like that with all the Tampa teams and especially their horrible fans. I feel the same way about Tampa.
There's some teams that get under my damn skin. And the Bengals were that team. For me, ironically, you talk about the people that sleep on them, the whole 9 yards. I was one of those people. I was betting against the Bengals every single opportunity I got down the stretch last season, and they screwed me every single time. I bet against the Chiefs game,
the Raiders,
game,
yeah.
The Titans game. I mean, every single step of the way, I'm like, there's no way they win this game. He's going to get sacked 12 times, and he gets sacked 12 times, and they still win the game. I'm
not a Bengals fan. I don't like the Bengals. I just think they're a lot better than people give them credit for. That's all I'm saying.
No, yeah, that's totally fair. And I'm on the whole other side of the spectrum. So I definitely could be in the middle a little bit better than I do. But that's my short little rant on those two teams. All right. So getting to 46 here. All right. So we'll move right along. I do have a couple Q&A questions I want to ask you real quick, but I won't spend too much time on them. It's one specific question that I wanted to. This is usually the time where if anybody wants to chime in, and I know that Pokemon did have a question earlier, which is
let's bring them on. No problems.
Yeah, of course. If anybody has a question, feel free to drop it in the comment section. And my first question for you is, like I said, kind of alluding to what Pokemon asked earlier. Who is more likely to make a move for a big name, the Bills or the Chiefs?
The honest answer is I don't think either team is. But if you're going to force me to pick one, I'm going to say the Chiefs. Because they're chasing the Bills at this point. What do the Bills need right now? Now, look, yes, Christian McCaffrey. Who doesn't need Christian McCaffrey? I get that. Okay. Mm-hmm. You got to understand this about the Bills and Brandon Beane. Yes, he knows that the time is now. They're in win now mode. That said, you got to look at it this way. Now, are you talking Odell Beckham Jr. is a free agent. Ain't going to cost him anything. So that could be a game changer. Von Miller, even today, once again, or Sunday night, once again, doubled down and said that he predicts he's really confident that Odell Beckham Jr. is going to Buffalo. I don't know if he's blowing smoke or if he's dead serious. I have no idea, but he's confident of that. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to get I'm trying to get Odell Beckham Jr. Or if not, I'm trying to get a receiver who can fly and make that Bills secondary have to defend more grass.
Yeah.
Because you can see the difference. And look, it was annoying that Tyreek Hill being gone hasn't been, as a Bills fan, it was annoying that all season long to this point before Sunday, didn't really hear much about that because their offense was scoring 30 points a game, number one point scored coming into the game in the NFL. But all of a sudden, the Bills I don't want to say shut them down, but they certainly contain them. And now it's all again, that's because Tyreek Hill's not there. Travis Kelce, he had 8 catches for 108 yards, but they kept the ball in front of him. Go down the field methodically. They don't have that guy who's going to, now it was a fluke play where 2 guys missed a tackle and Schuster made it into one long play. But it is fair. They don't have Tyreek Hill, a guy who catch a 5-yard slant and take it 75 yards for a touchdown, which has happened to the Bills. And the Bills have defended him scared in the past. So I can see the Chiefs wanting to get some type of receiver like him. Maybe I misspoke when I said the Bills, there's no chance they're going to make a move. There's no chance that the Bills are going to give up valuable draft capital for a veteran now. That's what I should have said because they got a lot of guys that they need to sign. They got a lot of guys, a lot of money invested now, and they got other guys that they're going to have to sign. These draft picks are very important to Brandon Beane. Draft capital is huge to him because you're filling needs for the future. Like James Cook, he might be your running back 1 next year. Khalil Shakir, he might be the slot receiver next week, but he's certainly going to move up and roll next year. Cheap labor, rookie contracts. He values that. So that's why I don't see us giving up. And I hate when I say us. It's the Buffalo Bills. I'm not part of the Bills organization. But anyway, I don't see the Bills. Like if you're talking Christian McCaffrey, I know they're saying a first-round pick in more of a Carolina. That's ridiculous. No one's doing that. But even say a second and a fourth, I don't see Brandon Beane doing that. I really don't. Odell Beckham Jr., if you want to count him and you want to take Von Miller at his word, I don't know. Then I guess maybe you could flip a coin. But if I had to bet, I'd bet the Chiefs. But they got to do some maneuvering if they want to be able to do something. They restructured Travis Kelce today, but all that did is give them operating money. That didn't give them a lot of money to be able to do anything. But I wouldn't count the Chiefs out. I think they know they need to get another playmaker now.
Yeah, with that Travis, I asked this question with that Travis Kelce restructure in mind. I really wonder because, I mean, if I were the Chiefs, they've drafted, I think they've been one of the best, they've had one of the best draft classes over the last 2 seasons. They have knocked almost every pick they've had out of the park. Every guy that they've brought in is an instant impact starter or, rotational player. Nick Bolton, highlighting that great draft class from 2021. He's a starting linebacker for them on the inside. They drafted Trey Smith in like the 6th round after he fell due to medical reasons. He's been a starting guard. The list goes on. They've been knocking it out of the park. And I don't know what their expectations were this year. I don't know if they thought they were going to be as competitive as they are. I don't know if they thought they were going to be, as dominant as they've been up to this point. But I wonder if they're thinking to themselves, if, like you said, if Odell Beckham's off the table, then if we're talking about somebody else they could acquire, are they thinking, we've been killing it with these draft picks over the last few years. We should just keep rebuilding. If this year we fall short, so be it. We'll just hold on to what we have and we keep building for the future as this AFC starts to die down. Or do they think they really have a legit shot at it again this year? I guess it all depends on the mindset they have.
Count the Chiefs among the teams when, we're hearing about Odell Beckham. If they can find more ways, and this is the NFL, you can always find more ways to get money. Count the Chiefs among the contenders for Odell Beckham. I'm just going to leave it at that. I know the Bills are, I know the Rams are, maybe the Ravens. Count the Chiefs among them. That's I'll just say that. And look, unless you're the Rams, teams don't freely give away draft capital to try to get rental players. Basically, teams build for the present, but also for the future. And that's why good teams stay good, because they draft well and they take advantage of draft capital.
Yeah, definitely. And, on that point, I don't think a second round pick to the Bills organization specifically is more than valuable.
Sure.
The way that Brandon Beane's been drafting, similar to the Chiefs, knocking out of the park almost time and time again. I mean, Gabe Davis is the 4th round pick, for crying out loud.
It's a 1-year depth player and a 3-year starter on a cheap rookie contract. That's what a second rounder is.
Yep, definitely. And to Odell, I'm going to open that branch up real quick. Does Odell? I think at this point you make that offer to Odell Beckham, and if you have to say, you know what, we'll give you more than the next guy, and not really play the hard bargain side of things, I think you do it. I was so done with, as I'm sure you were and the rest of us, with Isaiah Mckenzie. That was the most infuriating effort I've seen from an individual in a single half of football. And, not that I don't have faith in Khalil Shakir, but, this is the year that I think we'll have probably one of our best opportunities, if not the best, going forward. I want that guy to be there. And if it's going to be Odell Beckham Jr. that we can trust, then I'm not usually a go get the star kind of guy, but I'm really slowly developing into it. And I think I'm extending that off.
You spoke earlier of character and culture in clubhouses. I think what the Bills clubhouse thinks about bringing in someone like Odell Beckham matters. I don't think it's ultimately going to tell Brandon Beane, yo, don't bring this guy in or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it does matter to an extent. Now, in fairness to Beckham, the Rams players were raving about him. Von Miller's raving about him. He's had this past history of being considered a selfish, egotistical player, but he fit in very, very well with the Rams, and he did help get them over the hump. So I don't think that would be a problem in Buffalo, but you got to make sure that locker room is going to be accepting of him, because you do have guys like Isaiah Mckenzie that have been there from day one at camp and stuff like that. Now, 2 weeks ago, I would have disagreed with you about Isaiah Mckenzie. The problem with Isaiah Mckenzie is he's just too damn inconsistent. He's a splash player. He could do good things. He could go get you 11 catches in a game against the Patriots like he did last year. He could run jet sweeps. He makes big plays, but he also drops the ball. He runs the wrong routes. He makes mental errors. He trips over his own feet in the end zone when you're throwing him the football on 4th down. So can you improve over him? Sure. Now, maybe Khalil Shakir, maybe, Sean McDermott doesn't like to play rookies more than he needs to.
Yeah.
So let's not forget about that. So I'm not dismissing Odell Beckham. Do they need him? Do they need him? Probably not. Could they use him? Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The Isaiah McKenzie experiment. Prior to the season beginning, I was, I was kind of playing the bad guy side of things with him. Everybody loves him. I love the dude. He's got a great personality. He's a great locker room guy. It's got nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Sure.
It's just a guy that has never seen more than 40 targets in his entire career. We're expecting him to fill the shoes of Cole Beasley, the guy that was one of the most important pieces in Josh Allen's development in this offense. And we're expecting him to be the guy to step up to the plate, to take those keys, of course, being rotational with Jamison Crowder. But Mckenzie really wasn't even able to handle, the rotational portion of it. And now that Jamison Crowder goes down, I'm not trusting, McKenzie to do it at all. Of course, I would love to see Khalil Shakir go out there and kill it. But if I had to, going back on the Odell point, I'm putting the keys, into that Lamborghini and letting him drive off.
Mckenzie had 5 targets on Sunday against the Chiefs, and he only had 9 yards receiving. To your point, inconsistent.
Brutal. Yeah, we were moving the ball. There were 2 drives that he was at the end of the day. If we were thinking extremely critically here, he was probably the cost, of 10 points at least. 10 points at least, and that's completely game changing. When you look at it from the grand perspective. So, wonder what they're going to do. We all saw what happened with the whole Zach Moss thing. It took them forever to finally make him inactive. McKenzie, this isn't his first go around with the screw up. So hopefully this doesn't turn into a Zach Moss thing. Just, pull the plug early if we have to. All right. So that was a long-winded Q&A question. Let's
that was a good question though. I like that. That was a good question because McKenzie's a very polarizing topic. And then, like I said, I fall kind of in the middle of what you say, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on. We'll do one more Q&A question and then we'll move on to the quiz game right after that. We can get on our way. The quiz game, the second Q&A question I'm going to have for you is this. Who is the next head coach to be fired in the NFL? And you kind of alluded to somebody earlier. I want to get your thoughts.
Clint Kingsbury could be in trouble. I'm trying to think of potential in-season firings. That's who I come up with. Or I don't think he's going to get fired during the season. I'm very confident that Nate Hackett is not an NFL head coach. They're just so underwhelming. And that team is so talented. Look, even if Russell Wilson's less than 100%, and even if Russell Wilson's not the quarterback that he was 6 years ago, even if he's just average, that team should still be much better than they are. And they got a very good defense too, by the way. In fact, their defense has been carrying their team. That's the reason why they're probably 2-4, not 0-6 right now this season. So, my money would have to be on Hackett. Yeah. I'm looking right now. I'm trying to think. Carolina already got rid of their coach.
Daniel's on that radar.
Ron Rivera. I can see that happening just because Washington they need changes all over the place. Man. Quarterback. How do you win in the NFL if your weaknesses, if you got 2 weaknesses and your weaknesses are your head coach and your quarterback? How are you ever going to win football games? You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy. But my expectations weren't high for Washington to begin with. My expectations for Denver were significantly better, as were everybody's. Look, what did we hear about all offseason long? Especially you're a Bills fan, how loaded the AFC is this year, and especially how loaded. I heard the term historically good, the AFC West this year. And Kansas City has kind of lived up to what they're supposed to be. And the Chargers are 4-2, but they're not a very impressive 4-2. They were dying to lose that game on Monday night. Denver just refused to take it from them. And again, Chargers have had some injury issues, and not to mention Justin Herbert's playing with probably busted ribs, and you could just tell he's not the same quarterback right now anyway. But Denver stinks, and the Raiders, they got 1 win this year. They go out to get Devontae Adams. They get Chandler Jones. Again, they're a very top-heavy team that got top-end talent, but they're just not a good football team. It's just That division it just blows me away how bad it is. But yeah, my money's it's got to be on Hack. It's got to be Hackett.
That's I can't help but think anyone else. Like you said, I mean, it has to be. How can it not? There's been I was one of the I was on the bandwagon of this AFC being one of the best we've seen in NFL history. Don't get me wrong, but the Denver Broncos specifically, I was not high on. I thought this year it was going to be a year where they needed to get on the same page. They needed to get acclimated. Russell Wilson, a new offense. Things were different. So I did not think they were going to win the West. I actually had them finishing in last of that division. But I never, in my wildest dreams, thought it would be this dreadful. I mean, this is just a whole new level of low for this
records.
team.
Bad records are one thing. A team could be a good football team, but we got 17 games. You could go 8-9 and still be a pretty good football team. They're painful to watch. It's not fun to watch them play football. It's annoying, and I'm not a fan. I can't imagine if I was a Denver Broncos fan. Well, I can't imagine because I've watched the Buffalo Bills play for a lot during the 17-year period, but it kind of brings me back to those days where it's just like, you got some talent and you feel like your team should be better, but your quarterback can't get anything done and you just find stupid things to do. Like the guy getting blocked into his own guy catching a punt in overtime. That's how they lose. That reminds me a lot of the Bills in the drought years. It's like underwhelming quarterback play, guys who should be playing better, and you find a way to lose. That's the Denver Broncos in a nutshell right now.
Yeah, totally. And that bothered me. On a side note, I bet the Broncos to win. I thought this was going to be the Russell Wilson's breakout game with the Broncos. And lo and behold, that was not what ended up happening. But yeah, I mean, they're finding every way to shoot themselves in the foot. Watching, I had the Broncos. I put a lot of stock in the Broncos. I'm starting to realize this season. I had them week 1 in my survivor pool against the Seahawks. And watching that game had me ripping my hair out just piece by piece, getting down to the goal line. Javonte Williams fumbles, Melvin Gordon fumbles. I'm sitting there rubbing my eyes. I did not think in my wildest dreams they could lose that game.
It's just crazy, man.
Oh man, I wanted to throw up. That was a tough one to swallow. Robert asked a quick question: where is Sean Payton going to coach next
year? Maybe we just mentioned the team right now.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to say Dallas, like a lot of people, and it's early, but they're 4-2. Let's see what Dallas does for the rest of the year with Dak Prescott back. Are they going to be a team that truly legitimately contends in an NFC that really outside of Philly right now? It just seems like there's about 5 or 6 teams below Philly right now where you could say who's really number 2 in this conference right now. I don't know. And I'm throwing records aside. It could be Dallas.
Yeah.
Let's see how they finish the year. Do they have a first round playoff exit? If that happens, then I could clearly see McCarthy getting fired. So I could see Sean Payton coaching there. I look at other teams, and I mean, Sean Payton is not just going to take any job. So what's potential desirable positions that you look around the league that could be open? I don't really see a lot. Maybe if the Indianapolis Colts miss the playoffs, besides Matt Ryan being gone, maybe Frank Reich gets the boot, because you can make a case that, going back to last year when they all had to do is beat Jacksonville to get in the playoffs and they got destroyed. Another team that's got a lot of talent, but I mean, he's only a 2nd-year coach with Staley, the Chargers. I see a lot of talent there. Are they going to underachieve? Did they miss the playoffs? Are they the last wild card? And do they get bounced handily in the first round? And maybe, a guy like Sean Payton being available will make an owner maybe react to fire a coach or get rid of a coach that probably he normally wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I want someone to ask about Leslie Frazier, by the way.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be happening. Leslie Frazier will 100% be out the door. It'll be the new hires will be Leslie Frazier, Sean Payton, and then, one of the better offenses in the NFL, offensive coordinator.
He'll be deserving. Last year I wasn't all that confident that Leslie Frazier deserved a head coaching job. After Sunday, and admittedly, I'm no film guy. I'm not no film guru. I'm not like, a lot of the guys, my friends from Cover One, who break down every little thing. But man, Dan Orlovsky from ESPN and a lot of these guys were showing film and all these different disguises and the ways that he's confused Kansas City and just the way they played defense this entire year, only allowing 7 points in the second half before Sunday. It's just he's done a phenomenal job. So, and I also think it's more likely he'll be a head coach, by the way, than Sean Payton. The interest is going to be there for Sean Payton, but he doesn't need to come back until the situation is right. So maybe If he wants to coach in Dallas, but that, Dallas wins a playoff game and Jones don't want to fire McCarthy, maybe he waits to 2024.
Yeah, very true. He's definitely going to be waiting for the right opportunity. He's got that aroma around him. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go there. Why would I go there? I'm not going to.
Like John Gruden did before. And then he
Yeah.
eventually went to the Raiders. Hopefully it works out better for John Gruden, but what I'm saying.
All right. So on that note too, one more question. I feel I don't want to leave anybody out. Pokemon asked, anybody overreacting with Mike Tomlin, the Steelers fans? Does that insinuate that there's drama with Mike Tomlin? He's getting flamed. I didn't think there was any kind of
That's news to me.
Yeah.
I don't know of any issues with the Steelers with Mike Tomlin. I this is where I live. It's a trifecta of teams: Bills, Steelers, Browns. Anyone think that? I don't know. I'm a little confused, to be quite honest with you, by the question. If it has anything to do with Pittsburgh and fans being, disenfranchised with Mike Tomlin, I don't know of any of that. I mean, Pittsburgh, again, they're a rebuilding team right now. They got some players. They got a rookie quarterback. And we all knew Mitch Trubisky wasn't going to be the long-term quarterback. Kenny Pickett's a rookie. Injuries on defense. I mean, you don't replace a TJ Watt, when he goes down, and they've had Casey Hayward's missed time. Fitzpatrick's been less than 100%. So they've had a lot of injuries. I think they're a better football team than a lot of people give them the credit for. And I think we saw that on Sunday. They beat Tampa. And that was a week after getting thoroughly embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills. And you could just tell Mike Tomlin's in his voice immediately after the game last Sunday. And then also during the week in Pittsburgh, he was very, very embarrassed with the way his team got wiped by the Buffalo Bills. And to their credit, I think they responded very well against, what most people anyway think are a very good football team in Tampa. So I don't see any problem with Mike Tomlin, and I'd be shocked if the Steelers organization had a problem with him.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, if there is any issues that the Steelers fan base is taking with Mike Tomlin, they need a reality check. I mean, they got what I think is a top 3, top 4 head coach in the NFL.
Sure.
And he's 100% earned his medallions in this league. So if they're giving him problems over a rookie quarterback and a bridge quarterback issue, a defense without TJ Watt, I mean, they're a little bit spoiled.
If Mike Tomlin got fired at the end of the season, there would be a bevy of teams around the league. I'm pretty sure that would like to get their hands on Mike Tomlin.
Oh yeah, I think. Well, if that were to have happened, I think the Steelers fan base would quickly realize the mistake that they made if they really made that much of an uproar about it later down the road.
Absolutely.
All right. Once my StreamYard wants to load back up because it is being extremely slow, we'll get into the Caveman's quiz game. This is the most anticipated segment of the show. For the most part, if people come on, they're not exactly the biggest fans of trivia. They don't like trivia. Whatever.
I have a fair excuse. I have a legitimate excuse. Now, I know other people have been on, and I'm sure they're going to do better than me. I would like to just say for the record, I am probably significantly older than your other guests that you've had on by several years in many cases. And I am at that age where I start to forget a lot of shit. So, you know what I'm saying? My ability to retain information is certainly not what it used to be, but I'll play along, man.
Hey, any guest that comes on here and downplays what they know always kills it. I'm not downplaying it. I'm being legit with you.
No. The good thing about me though is trust me, I'm not afraid to embarrass myself. So
all right,
I won't have no problem flunking your quiz.
All right, let's see how you do. So long story short, this is how it works. It's pretty simple. You're going to get 5 NFL questions. The first one's going to be an off-season events question. Second's going to be stats. Third's going to be history, draft. Fourth, awards. Fifth, easy. You get to pick a difficulty, easy, medium, or hard. Easy's 10 points, medium's 20, hard is 30. You get to choose a true. Well, if you get the question correct, then there's a follow-up true-false question, which is worth half of the original. So I'll do the math as we go along. And then you get 1 mulligan per game, which you can use, any point that you choose when you get a question wrong, or if you want to save it till the end and use it on a different category, you could do that as well. Although one disclaimer with the mulligan, if you take like the history medium question, for example, and you want to use the mulligan on history again, I don't have like a backup medium history. So you'd have to do the easy or the hard.
Gotcha.
And then one final wager question, which is basically just Final Jeopardy. This is what the Caveman leaderboards are looking like. Judges at the top. He did similar to what you did. He came on, said, I don't know nothing. And he had 110 points at the end of it, and he wagered it all, or 105, whatever the math is. And he wagered it all at the end. He got the question right, and look at him. He's all the way at the top.
He's a nerd.
Yeah, he definitely, I think, hustled me. He acted like he knew nothing.
I didn't see Matt Perino on that list.
Matt Perino played it. When he played, he was number one at the time. And there was controversy when he did play because at that time, the show's come a long way. I think that was still like a single digit episode when I had him on, if I remember correctly. And I had a lot of ties. I'm like, people can't keep tying on this game. Something needs to change. And I kind of threw a trick question at him, and he kind of felt like it was bullshit. So he made me give him another question. He got it right, and he took number one. So ever since then, I've definitely revamped it. He got 90 points, I think, which is definitely achievable in the new format. All right,
let's rock, man. We'll see how this goes. A lot to unpack here.
You're gonna do just fine. It's not the hardest thing in the world, at least I think. So the first question is the off-season events question. Do you want to go with the easy, the medium, or the hard?
We'll go medium.
All right. He's going to start off the medium question. Where did defensive end Yannick Ngakoue get traded to this offseason? There's no time limit, by the way, so take your time.
I hate dead airspace, so I'm not doing it on purpose right now. I'm just it was with the Raiders and he got traded. Minnesota?
It was not Minnesota. It was the Colts. He got traded to Indianapolis. He's alongside Forrest Buckner, Quiddy Pay, who did go down with an injury, but it is.
That's right.
Colts.
Yep, you're right.
So I will allow you to use every opportunity. You get the chance to. You want to use your mulligan here? Or would you like to save it?
No, I'll save it.
All right, he's going to save it. Moving on. Question number 2. This is going to be the stats question. Do you want to do the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Well, I promise you I'm not doing the hard since I've really your medium was hard enough for me. You know what? I want to feel good about myself, so let's attempt it easy, but this could backfire because if I miss out on your easy, then I'm going to really be embarrassed. So we'll do an easy one here.
I think you got this one in the bag. Who is the last undefeated team in the NFL?
The last undefeated team in the NFL for full season.
No, just this season. This is just I should have.
All right, because I thought you were giving me a trick question. It's the team that a lot of fans in their city are angry that they're not seeing themselves number one right now in the Caveman Power Rankings, among others. Of course, that's the Philadelphia Eagles.
You are correct. So that is 10.
I'm not going to get shut out now. All right, there we go.
Yeah, no, you're on the board. You're on the board. There's more opportunity, and you're going to do better than this. I have faith. The true-false follow-up, which is going to be worth 5 points, is going to be this. They lead the NFL in points for. True or false?
The Philadelphia Eagles? That's the question?
Mm-hmm.
False.
You are correct. They do not lead the NFL in points for. I want to say, I didn't double-check on who it actually was because I made this question.
I think it might still be Kansas City. If it's not, it's Buffalo, but I think it still might be Kansas City.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think it is Kansas City because they lead the AFC, and the NFC is not doing hot in terms of scoring. So I'd assume it's definitely Kansas City because I know they're top of the AFC. So. All right, there you go. That's 15 total points so far. And we'll move on to the third question, which is going to be the history question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go medium because I can feel a mulligan coming here.
All right, we're going to go with the medium history question. Antonio Brown has been a part of how many teams in his career?
All right, well, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Raiders, 4.
You are correct. It is 4 teams. Pittsburgh, Tampa, Raiders, Patriots were the 4 teams that he played for. So that'll be 20 points. The true false follow-up is going to be this. He scored a touchdown with all the teams he dressed for.
Well, obviously Pittsburgh, Tampa. No, he did score with New England. Did he score with the Raiders? I'm guessing, to be honest with you. I don't know for sure. So this is admittedly a guess. I'm going to say true.
Not true. It is
Damn
false.
it.
Antonio Brown didn't dress a game with the Raiders. He went through the whole.
Oh my God, that's right. What the
He
hell
went
am I?
through
Yeah,
the whole helmet debacle. He froze his feet in that stupid Cairo.
see, that's reading
chamber.
That's the reading comprehension stupidity on my part for not comprehending and soaking the question in and jumping to a conclusion. You got me, man. Fair
I
enough.
got him. That wasn't meant to be I mean, it was meant to be a little bit of a curveball, but that's all right. So we'll move on. So you do have 35 points. I have a very hard time with math. Like I've multiple occasions I've screwed up the math on this show. I've been very diligent lately. So 35 points is the total. I promise I'm not lying. Question number 4. This is going to be the draft question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go. We'll go medium. I forget. I'm very forgetful with the draft. So I'm going to go medium. I'm not going to feel good about it, but let's try medium.
All right, you do have that mulligan, remember. So here's the medium draft question. This Lions cornerback went 3rd overall in the 2020 NFL draft.
He's an Ohio State corner. His last name starts with an O. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name though.
The second you read it, you knew it, but you didn't. The second you
read Jeff Okaba or something like that. What's the last name?
I'll give it to you. It's Jeff Okuda. You obviously know who it is. You knew it. I'm not going to play that hard with you. You definitely got that one right.
Fair enough, man. I did know it. It was just the name was on the tip of my tongue, but I definitely knew who it was.
I didn't even finish reading the question, and you were already like, damn it, what was it? But yeah, it is Jeff Okuda. You are correct. So that's 20 more points. The true-false follow-up is going to be this. There was a top 3 corner selected this season or this draft.
Well, it was Jacksonville, Detroit. Who was the 3rd? It's true, right? I believe Stingley went 3rd overall.
Yep, that is correct. It was Stingley. He did go 3rd overall. So it's another 10 points. You are now up to 30, 50, 65 points. All right. So you got 65 points with a mulligan, 1 question left, and the wager question. I'd say you're doing pretty damn well right now.
So this is the last question before the wager question?
Yeah, but then you'll use your mulligan too. So technically 2 more questions.
Okay, gotcha.
So the award question: do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
This is awards?
Yep.
Well, I probably should use the hard because even if I get it wrong, I could use the mulligan now, right?
That is true. You could use the
mulligan. Or could I use the mulligan on the wager question?
No.
Or no?
That you can't do.
All right, so I'm trying to cheat him. All right, well then I'm going to go hard because I feel like this is a free shot here.
All right, fair enough. He's going with the hard awards question, which is going to be this. In 2009, this Vikings rookie wide receiver won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who is it?
2009 Vikings Rookie of the Year. Usually with these kind of questions, it'll either strike me quickly like it did with your 3rd overall pick with the Lions, or I'm not going to be able to dig down and find it. I don't know. I'm going to be annoyed when you tell me the answer, though. I'm going to use a mulligan, too. Who? I don't know. I give up.
Percy Harvin.
Oh, my God.
Percy Harvin. Former Bills wide receiver himself.
Went on to Seattle, Buffalo.
Yep, Percy Harvin. One of the most, I don't want to call him one of the most.
Good question. That was a legitimate hard question. Like that fit the category well.
I have a very hard time determining what is actually easy.
No, I think that was a good, legitimate, hard question.
Good to hear because I do have a tough time determining it sometimes. But all right, so what's Percy Harvin? No points there, but you want to use your mulligan on the awards?
Yeah, medium.
Right, so medium. All right, this medium awards question is going to be this: which franchise has had the most defensive player of the year winners?
All right, well, we're already into. I'm definitely going to be guessing territory, and I got. I'm going to, again, I guess. There's 3 teams that come pop in my mind right away. So I'm going to go with the one that popped in first just because of the history of how long this team's been good defensively. I'll guess the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it's a guess.
Yes, you are correct. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers. You don't need to overthink the medium ones too much. If it came to mind first, it is the
Watt, Palomulo. You go back to Mean Joe Green, the days of the 70s, the Steel Curtain. So, yeah, I get it.
Oh yeah,
Good
the
guess.
list goes on. They had 8 total defensive player of the year winners.
Wow.
So they are definitely the winners in that category. It's not particularly close, but the true false follow up is going to be this: no other team has had more than 4.
I'm gonna say that's true.
The answer is going to be false. I think if I remember correctly, this one I for some reason don't have written down. No team has more than 4. What did you say? True?
I said true.
4. Actually, you are right. There is no other team on this list that has more than 4. So you are correct.
Nice.
All right. So that's another 10 points off of the mulligan. So you are up to, all right, here's where the tough part comes in: 30, 60, 80, 90, 95 points going into the awards question. So you're beating Matt right now.
Am I really?
Yeah, he had 90. So you're beating Matt.
Okay.
So how do you want to play this?
I want to bet 4 points.
All right, he's gonna bet 4 points.
All I want to do is beat Matt Marino, and I just did. So this is all gravy right now.
Well, technically, Matt, like I did say, he did play in a different era of the Caveman's.
I don't
game.
care. Play in the 80s and the 70s, used to run the football. Now you throw the football. I don't care. The scoreboard is the scoreboard. So tough shit for him.
Fair enough. All right. So we will get into the wager question. You're going to wager 4 whole total points. All right. So this is going to be the wager question. Are you ready?
Yep.
4 points. All right. Can you list the finalized standings of the AFC North last season?
AFC North. Okay. Well, I know what teams missed the playoffs. I'm going to go. Try to think of the other 2 of them. I know for sure did not make the playoffs. I know that for sure. Try to think of the third team right now. If I'm going to go Cincinnati was 1. Try to think of the draft from this past year. Might help me a little bit. Baltimore. Damn. Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
Well, you had the Steelers and the Ravens backwards. The Steelers made the playoffs. They were the 7th seed.
Oh my God, that's right.
They got just demoralized on national television by the Chiefs.
By the Chiefs. That's right. God damn, what was I thinking, man? Yeah. I
told
you I was going to embarrass myself at least once here. Yeah.
I mean, he did good.
They did make the playoffs last year. Maybe that's why Steeler fans are so mad this year now.
Yeah, really. Honestly, those ungrateful, how they made the playoffs.
That was fun. These were good questions, man. I legit, they were brain teasers without being impossible to get.
Okay, I'm glad to hear. Cause I try to, so what I was doing, cause early in the lifespan of this, I was kind of coming up with them on my own and then determining the difficulty on my own, Jesus. And I was struggling because I'm reading the question and obviously I know the answer as I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, was it easy? Was it medium? How am I supposed to determine it? So I started to send out this Google form to my friends and a group of people to help me determine it. That got a lot to do because the way I formatted it, it was 25 questions and it was hard to do every week. So I got away from it now and I'm trying again to really figure out how I'm going to determine the question difficulty. So that's the most difficult part about this. So I appreciate you telling me that.
Yeah, it was cool, man.
All right. So you do finish with 91 total points on the night. You beat Matt. I don't think that makes the leaderboard. Nope, you're just short of the leaderboard, but that's all right. It doesn't seem like you.
Listen, if I would have made the leaderboard, if I would have gotten it right and made the leaderboard, it would have been on the bottom part and a couple episodes away. Someone was going to knock me off anyway, so I wouldn't have any long-term glory. But now I'll always know that I had one more point than Matt Marino, and that's all. That's a permanent W for me.
Perfect. I'm glad you got what you wanted out of the quiz game. All right. Well, thank you, Pat, honestly, for taking the time to hop on with me tonight. It's been a blast having you on, man. You were fantastic.
I really appreciate it. One last quick thing, too. For all the Bills fans out here who might be watching or listening to this, I talked about this a little bit on my show as well. I don't know if you're a Yankees fan or a Derek Jeter fan, but he had that recent 8-part documentary on ESPN Plus, and it was really fascinating. But anyway, Derek Jeter won 5 World Series, and one of the best winning shortstops in baseball history. But at the end of the documentary, he took time to talk about his one regret for his career, and he would say, as soon as he won a World Series, the shine wasn't even off the trophy, and he's already thinking about the next one and getting ready to try to win the next one. He never took time to really enjoy and revel in winning his championships and being in the moment. And he talked about this on the documentary. Bills fans, are how I'm tying this into the Buffalo Bills, is Sunday was a big win. And this is a very good football team right now. And it's really easy to say, oh my God, I'm so stressed. I can't wait January. Are we going to be able to win if we have the Bengals, or the Chiefs, or whoever you're playing, or where it's going to be, or getting home field number 1 seed? You want all that stuff. Don't get me wrong. But my point is, kind of live in the moment a little bit. When you got a football team and a generational talent as good as Josh Allen is right now, and just from top to bottom, the best roster in the NFL, just take some time and actually enjoy being a fan of a really good football team, and don't really stress and think so much about a month, 2-3 months from now. That time's going to come, but make sure you spend some time and just kind of enjoy being in the moment of being a fan of a great football team.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, honestly, I think everybody is probably looking toward the future implications of how the number 1 seed will play out, or what.
Sure, and I am too,
yeah.
but I want to enjoy right now a big win on Sunday, and I just want to enjoy this team being good and fun to watch, and just kind of living in that moment. And we'll cross the Super Bowl playoffs and all that stuff. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but let's enjoy this right now for what it is.
Definitely. That's a lesson to take, not only just from a football perspective, but not to be cliche, but from a life perspective too. I mean, totally.
Absolutely.
You gotta live in the moment. I do that a little bit too much. It's good to have a plan and be punctual and always ready to go for what's ahead of you. But living in the moment is definitely important, especially knowing what we've had in the past and what we have now. We definitely have to take advantage of it.
Sure, absolutely, man.
All right. Well, that'll do it. Like I said, thank you for hopping on. As always, guys, go check out Pat and the Talking Buffalo podcast. It'll be down in the description below. He just shows, constantly this guy's doing. He's always working. Working toward his 500th episode. So be sure you're following him on all social media, checking out his podcast. He does fantastic work. He's one of the best in the business. So definitely go check him out. And thank you to him for, taking the time to join me tonight. And if you enjoyed the show, go ahead, drop a like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Check me out. That'll also be down in the description. But I appreciate anybody that stopped in. Thank you for hopping on, Pat, and see you later. Go Bills.